I want to thank you first for not for coming back on the show because you've been on every episode.
Special guest.
Yeah. I never did a test. Can you just do a test here and I'll play it back?
Test. This is a test. Should I play and/or sing "Test the Wrestler's" theme song?
Let me see.
That's Test theme song. That's Test entrance music.
Is that like heavy metal or something?
It's WWF gibberish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna steal another podcast.
But I wanted
to from OSW.
I mean, you can kind of steal from wherever because I remember.
No audience.
I remember Alex saying to me one time. I think when we were reviewing Arrival, it never got posted. But he's like, well, you can't rip off the rewatchables. And then I saw a tweet several months later of accusing Bill Simmons. It's like the reformatable. It's where we rip off everyone else's podcast template and use it as our own. So it's like everything is ripped off. I mean, I'd consider it fair game. But my main thing that I was going to say was thank you for preparing me for Twin Peaks adequately as it could be, like watching Fire Walk with Me, and a few other Lynchian movies.
We watched Wild at Heart.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was it, was it?
I think that's the only other one.
But surprisingly...
we still have to watch Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
Which was my original choice for the movie to watch on my birthday.
Yeah.
Before watching The House That Jack Built.
Yeah. I think we chose Mulholland. I always wanted, essentially, because I asked you what David Lynch's best film was, and even during Twin Peaks, and you said, so I kind of wanted to reward myself with that.
So we have to, we definitely have to watch that, and well, it'll be interesting to hear what you think, considering in the past when I've showed people Twin Peaks, or tried to introduce that world to them, it's helpful to use Mulholland Drive as like a primer. But you'll see what I mean. Plus it has Billy Ray Cyrus in it, and
I mean, is that any sort of selling point?
Yeah, it should be.
The plot hole thing on thing that they mentioned, somebody mentioned that I never would have thought of.
With what?
Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yeah.
From like just plot holes in general, the Reddit forum. Was that somebody said, well, Billy Ray Cyrus is on Hannah Montana. Yeah. And on Hannah Montana, there's Hannah Montana, the alter ego pop star, and the regular girl, Miley Stewart. And they said, but Billy Ray Cyrus is both of their parents. Yeah. He's both their, so he's both like Billy Ray Stewart and Hannah Montana's dad. Why does nobody put that together?
Well, it's funny. It like straddles two worlds. Similar to Twin Peaks, and wrestling. Wrestling, you have the, story, and then you also know the
metatext.
Yeah, what's going on behind the scenes, and that sounds like that, or like the Muppet Show. You'd see the show they were putting on, and then but it was intermixed with the backstage segments of them struggling to put on the show.
I think that David Lynch always handles that kind of stuff like really well.
Yeah, Inland Empire is probably the best example.
I was going to mention Inland Empire of like where it ranks in the canon.
I've only seen it twice, and the first time was in the Royal Cinema in Toronto. It was like, it looks like the theater from Mulholland Drive, which I can't really talk about. But
spoilers.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't spoil that movie if I tried.
Well, I have to say, I do admire you like guarding for spoilers even throughout Twin Peaks: The Return, even though it was like, it's like I could tell some like
you didn't know Eddie Vedder was gonna show up.
The one thing that you could
like Nine Inch Nails, like right in the middle of an episode, just like abruptly, like mid sentence almost.
The only thing that you could say that could like ruin it and wouldn't be a take would be like that. An interpretation of the ending.
What year is this? Well, what's your interpretation? Like, what's the last episode?
Is that like they effectively erased Twin Peaks? And but to me, then that's,
so what does that mean?
To me, that's like, I mean, my first gut instinct is that it's like a nihilist interpretation of like none of it matters. So if you like told somebody approximately what the ending would be, it's like, why would they invest in something like that has no meaning.
So if like the show deleted itself,
Yes.
because if Laura doesn't die,
Mm-hmm.
Cooper doesn't come to town.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just crazy. It still trips me out. That I love that last episode. But what, like, how was?
Is that necessary for a satisfying finale, do you think? Because a lot of...
What do you mean?
Well, there's a lot
To
of TV
delete,
shows...
it's like if How I Met Your Mother, like the mother never existed. Like he adopted them, and they knew they were adopted.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, well, we have to hear the story. Like, he meets her mother at some point. He's like, you have no mother.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something that, like, David
These
Lynch
stories are all made up.
material.
Robin Scherbatsky is actually my doctor, and I'm way off my... How disappointing for Josh Radnor, as terrible as he is, like lowercase Jimmy Fallon.
I do.
To
I
grow
actually
up
think he's
to
a
be-
higher case Jimmy Fallon because he
To
wrote and
be,
directed.
like, how shitty to grow up to be Bob Saget.
Yeah. I
Or-
don't know.
It's like
I mean,
Zac
that
Efron
seems-
must have
that's
been really
pretty-
bummed to grow up to be Matthew Perry.
It seems pretty on brand for both of them, though, because, like, Josh Radnor, given his talent, would be lucky or approximate to
like
be
the
associated
Gilbert
with...
Gottfried jokes about Bob Saget?
I know.
Bob Saget raped and murdered a little girl in 1991.
Is that true?
Kept saying it.
Okay.
And no, it's not true.
I wouldn't
But it
imagine.
was during his roast where he just kept saying, like, it's amazing we're all here considering what Bob did in 1990. And he just makes it up to the point where when I looked it up, it goes to the Wikipedia page for the Streisand effect of, you know,
Thank you for calling it the Streisand effect.
as opposed to...
The Mandela effect isn't...
Oh,
or
yeah,
they-
it could be both.
Wait, what is the... Are they two different things?
Well, Streisand... Yeah, maybe
is
I'm
the
mistaken.
Streisand
I'm
effect?
mistaken.
Explain
Because
the
the
Streisand
Mandela effect...
Well, I know what the Mandela...
Yeah, but the Streisand effect was when you, like, sue or...
See, our podcast is picking up that...
we have one listener.
yeah.
Like, no one would have known about it if
Nobody had brought it up.
Barbara Streisand didn't get upset about it. And I think...
Oh.
Like, so I think it
So
was
they
South
are
Park.
unrelated, yeah.
I'm guessing it's South Park. Like, they had Mecca Streisand, and then she got really upset about it and sued them, and then a lot more people watched the episode because of it.
I see.
Whereas Mandela, it was just like a falsely believed misconception, or a widely believed misconception, like Sinbad playing a wizard in a 90s movie.
Yeah.
A lot of people remember that. Or like getting lost in the mall. Like, you can convince people that they have a memory where their parents lost them in the mall.
What does that say about, like, human nature, that people can be...
Well, it's just the faults of human memory and recollection and perception and reality. And Twin Peaks does have a lot to do with perception and reality. Did you notice anything, like about the last sequence? Like, what year is this? So they arrive, and I can't remember which, like, details. Like, well, that was the real owner of the house.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I imagined it was, like, 2017.
Like...
I couldn't imagine another year where it could have been, unless you wanted to read.
But, like,
it, and it's
like
like
what-
2020, you know.
But what's the significance of that?
I always liken every TV show I watch to, unless they explicitly state otherwise, like in Breaking Bad, takes place every
I know,
episode
but
is
does
a week for
the specific year...
me.
Because, like, the other instances of them talking about time, like, it is future. Is
Well, why
it
don't you
future?
tell me, 'cause-
Or is it past? No, but I'm wondering, because I can...
Because I basically liken it to everything taking place in real time. Like, it's the
Right.
same date in both of our realities.
So, Laura was killed, and then 25 years later, and it's so... With Cooper asking what year it is, when he's standing there with who he believes to be Laura Palmer, what year is this? Like, what kind of question is that to you?
Yeah, it's like that they traveled in time. Like,
Yeah, but what were you saying before about your impression of what happened in the episode, right?
Just that basically they effectively erased everything, and I'm trying to piece together like the how of that. But
so if they undid everything, and then Cooper brought like a clearly older looking Laura Palmer to the front door, so like. What years is that? Like the most important question. It's almost like if what
are you
years
saying there's more important one?
Yeah. But like that's how Cooper's like coming to understand is the reality. So
what's your interpretation?
But like, I don't want to just steamroll a discussion.
I know. I like
but
it.
Because I'm curious, like, what do you think that has to do with the diner scene?
Yeah.
With like Richard and Linda, or like he wakes up and it's a different motel and he has a different car.
Yeah.
And then he goes to a place, Judy's Diner.
I mean, the other would be like there's some kind of transcendence going on, like interdimensionality, basically.
Yeah. Like them driving, and they get to a certain point.
Yeah.
Like once we cross over,
yeah,
can all be different. And then they're Richard and Linda. And they wake up in a new place and she's not even there.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, well, better get to work. So the first place he goes to find Laura.
Yeah. Is the diner.
Which is Judy's Diner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the evil.
And she's off that day. Yeah, it's just so cool.
I mean,
what did you like? Did you notice any differences with Cooper? How he was acting? Or...
he was acting basically like Dougie in a way. Like he was just like his less competent self that you'd expect of it.
Like you would know. Like you personally, I'm sure. Yeah. Like you're not a member of the FBI, but you would know. Like
I've seen enough movies.
If you put a gun in a deep fryer, like
the heating,
will that make the bullets go off?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But Cooper was like, I don't know, but you better back up. Also, like, how many guns did he put in? Do you remember? I know we watched this a little while ago.
Sure.
He put in one extra. And when did Cooper ask, what's his name? I can remember. It was his battling Bud. He asked him for his gun after he wakes up from the coma. He was like,
"Oh right, yeah,
I have that snub nose," and he was like, "Dougie, how do you know about this?"
Yeah.
What was his name?
The boss.
Yeah, Battling Bud.
I'm not sure.
Like his Tim talking with Gordon Cole was a nice moment because it was the two David Lynches from different universes.
The two, not surrogates, because I wouldn't consider. I always
Bushnell Mullins. Yeah, there we go.
I always wonder about like roles within, like those meta roles within narratives. It's like, okay, here's the audience surrogate, and then here's the like the voice of reason or the narrator or the all-seer. Like it's. I find those voices get blended a lot.
Right. So there was like fourth episode from last. Dougie is eating cake.
Yes.
And he's watching.
I think about that a lot.
Sunset Boulevard.
Yes.
And the line that gets his attention from that movie, which exists.
Yeah.
Then we're watching a TV show where we're watching characters like doppelganger watching TV, a real thing. And he says, "Give me Gordon Cole." Right? And that gets his attention. And he starts crawling, and then he connects with the electricity.
Yeah.
Which inevitably, wakes him up.
Which makes me think that...
So, but is that not like... There's the Monica Bellucci dream.
Yeah.
Like, that's happening in France. There was a part that I didn't know. When she was like, "Look behind you," where Cooper's standing, but Cooper can't see. They're apparently standing at an art gallery that David Lynch was prominently featured at. And so David Lynch in real life is speaking to Monica Bellucci, but it's a dream for the character that David Lynch is playing.
How do you like?
Isn't that cool though? Like,
yeah, and
he sees the part from Fire Walk with Me where David Bowie comes strutting in.
Yeah.
Who do you think that is there?
That well, it's David Lynch looking.
No,
at Gordon
but that's
Cole.
the question that Philip Jeffries asked about Cooper to Gordon Cole. Who do you think that is there?
Like, who is in the place of Philip Jeffries?
Like, Cooper's with him, and Philip Jeffries walks in, and he points at Cooper, and he asks Gordon Cole, who do you think that is there?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember when watching Fire Walk with Me that there was nobody there, right? That he was just pointing at nothing, wasn't he? And then we see
Cooper
that
was in the
on
hallway, right?
Yeah.
And then when David Bowie shows up, the picture of Cooper freezes. So it's like the movie pauses.
Mm-hmm.
Like the movie that we're watching pauses. And then like David Bowie comes in, says we're not going to talk about Judy. Who do you think that is there? And then he like teleports. Well, right, he gets zapped out, and we see that electricity in the conversation above the convenience store at the Formica table.
Yes.
Like that, Philip Jeffries was such an interruption that he like disrupts the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no way to see him with it, like, and not see David Bowie.
Yeah. Well, it's like harkens back to that sort of thing.
Man.
Like David Bowie, essentially in any role, is that what? Like I think of him as Nikolai Tesla still, and I think of him as Pontius Pilate in The Last Temptation of Christ. It's that kind of acting, the sort of latter Jack Nicholson style of acting, where it's like you never forget you're watching Jack Nicholson, but your understanding of who they are informs the character that they're playing.
Right. So like, the famous Philip Jeffries. Because he disappeared for so long and then just shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah. That he could have essentially been David Bowie.
Of something else that's going on, too. So, yeah, like, I don't, like, get carried away.
But I want to hear your interpretation.
I think, so, the realization that of what Laura was laughing at the end of Fire Walk with Me.
Yes.
Her face flickering. She's watching a TV show. She's learned she's a character in a TV show and that she's created just to die.
Okay.
So, like, someone manufactured you. You know, when someone says that.
Oh, right. Yeah. The backwards talking. And,
and then someone says it because, like, that's, like, Diane was manufactured as, like, a placeholder. You know, and that one gets muddy because, like, she's the.
But what's your interpretation of the
ending?
ending?
Okay, so Laura learned she's a character on the TV show.
Yes.
And so if Cooper is to save Laura, is to save her from the TV show, so he has to transcend into reality to prevent it from happening. But that's why, like, everything when they come back on the whole drive from Texas to Washington is only at night.
Yeah.
Like, he gets to her in the daytime, but we only see them driving at night. And our diner hasn't been switched. Like, in the show, it looks different than how it is in real life. And then he pulls up to Laura's, like, famous house.
Yeah.
And
Which
it's
we've
the
seen.
real life owners. And, like, the names she gives them are Chalfont and Tremont, which were also the owners of the property where Chet Desmond went missing in Fire Walk with Me.
Okay.
Where do you go? I told you this is his trailer. I'm gonna go over here now. So he prevents Laura from dying, so the show never exists.
Yes. But what's your interpretation of, like, him at the significance of him asking, like, what year it is?
Oh, okay. So I think it was a trap for Judy in the storyline, like kayfabe story. Like, in those scenes where they're explaining the FBI, there are, like, so many phones and just electronic things.
Which is how Judy...
Yeah, and like she moves through the electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaude, which means knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So like to explain away a mystery. David Lynch has said forever, like as soon as said who killed Laura, the show was over.
Yeah.
'Cause that was Judy. That was the explanation that killed the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cooper wouldn't know how to exist as a real person in the real world, like Homer Simpson in that Treehouse of Horror.
Yeah, I love that episode.
Yeah, and I think about it all the time. And like, you know, like, I don't even know.
Watch it,
I don't
Tony.
even know. Like, I just, if he, like, I don't even know how to say it. And I feel like, I have like a really firm grasp on this show and about what's going on. But it's just, it's a tough one.
Do you view
to explicate
the original TV series, like the first 2 seasons? Do you think of that as a show in the same way you think of The Return? Or do you, like, as I think of it as a show and The Return as a movie? Like I
don't know that that's an important distinction to make between movie and TV show. For
I guess, like, in terms of, like,
18.
do you consider it, like, do you truly consider it all one story, or do you consider it a sequel series, it being The Return, or do you consider
it's like how,
or do you
like
consider
Kyle MacLachlan is like we see he's aged and he's walking around as Mr. C as Cooper, right? So it's the same thing. The show is being someone's dressed up as the show. And it's going around to all the familiar places and all the familiar people, but it's not the same show.
Yeah.
It's all the same pieces, but it's a different show because the same show can't exist now. It just...
So you don't really think of it as even a continuation of Laura Palmer's story. It's just like a rebuttal in a way, or is it two
reflection,
or two simultaneously? Like I can think of it both as it's Twin Peaks: The Return as its own thing, as well as an extension of the show, like as a weird.
Yeah, I mean, it does fit in with the show. It is a series of the show, but it's like it's just an imposter. It's fun. It's like like a body swap thing. Like if Twin Peaks switch bodies with like Breaking Bad, but then Breaking Bad was like, we could be Twin Peaks. But then it's like way more violent and like higher production values, and it just doesn't have the same like heart and feeling. I mean, it is there, especially with like Big Ed and Norma.
Well, it was really like I noticed a lot about, and I think we said this when we watched it. When Tim Roth and Jennifer Jason Leigh, like in that suburb scene, like I'm like, oh well, it's kind of funny that like
people are under a lot of stress, Jeffrey.
But like Twin Peaks inspires the X-Files, X-Files inspires Breaking Bad, Breaking Bad inspires Twin Peaks: The Return. And it's like seeing it back on itself. It's so weird.
It is, but then you have, if you see vehicles in the show as like different shows, like an artistic vehicle, that's what the cars are. So you have like 3 different shows like smashing together. You have Dougie's show, you have the serial killer like hitman show, the cop show with the FBI, and then this like violent real estate guy with his white car who's like, you blocked my driveway, and then he just kills them with a Gatling gun. Like they were the main characters of their own 24 type show where it was like consumable
Everyone
violence.
So
because it was one and done. There was no consequences, and it was like she was constantly eating like Cheetos and Wendy's. Was that Wendy's when they're like, well, next up Wendy's? After they shot the warden on the steps in front of his son.
I love I think the show, like, I never found that, like, as funny or trippy or as wide as it got, that, like, the show never really had tonal issues, like, in a weird way. Even when it, like, violently clashes one against the other, it always felt like consistent.
Well, I also there's like vignettes that inform that as well. So like it's not like the woman at the start with where she's dealing with the cops, where they first find Ruth Davenport / Briggs' body when it's in North Dakota, and they call the police, and the police were just trying to find their way in. Mm-hmm. And they're like, with the woman with the dog. Do you remember that?
No, it's
where it's feudal, like where she was. Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
The landlord's on vacation. Like,
yeah.
and I have the keys after everything, and that's like a little just, vignette that you have these people milling about, and the cops are just trying to do the job, and the lady's trying to be helpful because something's wrong in her community, in her neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Who are you gonna call? The police to show up and take notes like an hour later. And then oh my god, it's like a supernatural horror that's just right next door, where it's an impossible vivisection of a man who's like younger than he should be with a woman in a woman's apartment. And
is that supposed to be at all in parallel with Laura Palmer's like discovery at all, like that then
might be
comes at the end when you mention like the one guy getting his day of fishing and stuff? Because I would have thought
the one guy, Pete. If you watched the original show, you would love Pete as much as I do. Fellas, don't drink that. There's a fish in the percolator. And then, so what's it's tough to ask you that question because you're not super familiar with the original series, but like the fish in the percolator, I think is Philip Jeffries.
Oh, that would.
That's slippery in here.
What would you consider Philip Jeffries' relationship to Judy in any terms?
I think he exists outside, like in the stratosphere of the narrative. So he's like, he knows, he just doesn't have the ability to communicate. Because if he did, that's Judy. Yeah. Judy's like the truth and the explanation. So if Cooper's the audience and he gets Judy, there's no show. Isn't that right? Like if Cooper's the audience and Judy's the explanation, and if so the audience gets the explanation, there's no show. There's no drama. Like it's like Laura never exists.
Can you put the show into basic like protagonist antagonist terms?
Like for me, like to like what do you mean?
Well, I mean, like
can I contextualize it like?
Yeah, like any typical show.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like
Cooper is the
protagonist. Just like there's evil all around us, and it's mundane and a given and a part of reality, and that's like. I love the portrayal in Fire Walk with Me of them going to Canada, because that seems like an evil and mundane, knowable, place, right? Like it's familiar. There's people late at night doing drugs and having sex and everything in public, and it's just right there. You just have to be in the spot at a certain time
to see it.
So I think it's just like people know that this evil's around us. They see it on their TVs. When it happens to us, like when it happens to real people, we want to know and we want closure. And so closure and the mystery and the detective work is the hero, and the bad guy is just the evil that people do, like Bob. Like
it's I know you probably wouldn't be a fan of this, but it's like ethereal. I
love that word.
Oh, well, I was going to say because it's very much like Stephen King's novels where it's like the town or something is a representation of evil.
Do you think like David Lynch would be a fan of Stephen King?
Yeah, I mean...
What do you think he would and wouldn't like about him?
Well, here's what bothers me about like... And I find it funny that there's a lot of like Quentin Tarantino, for example, in my mind.
Yeah.
Or even Steven Spielberg. They all have like... not as good film taste as me or something, or they'll like they asked James Cameron, "What's your guilty pleasure?" He's like, "There's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. You you love it," and he's like, "Resident Evil, Paul Anderson's Resident Evil."
Yeah, because to say it's a guilty pleasure is to like
say that there's
implicitly
something wrong with it.
Say that it sucks. Like you would feel shame or guilt for having liked it. So it's like saying to your coworker, like, you did a shitty job, but because I know you, I like it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, that reminds me of like how you mentioned about Jim and Pam on The Office, how frustrating they are to watch as like essentially like workplace harassment. The show.
Poor Karen.
Yeah.
Karen Filippelli.
Oh, there was like another. I never watched it like all the way to the end. I watched the final episode and then ditched around season 6 of The Office. But there was like some other female character that I only know
Amy
of.
Adams.
No. But I saw it was on like TikTok. It's like your favorite like Office
romance.
Your favorite Office like female character, and it was like basically.
Is it Amy Ryan?
It was like Amy Adams. It showed them all, and it was like Amy Adams, Amy Ryan, Jenna Fisher. And then
Rashida
Jones,
Melora Walters,
who played Erin.
Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah. Well, she was a good actress then, because she was also in Bridesmaids. But we know who we're talking about. But then there was another one,
what's her face?
Who was like Jan as well.
Yeah,
was also in there.
Is that Melora Walters?
Yeah. But
Steve Carell's wife.
Yeah, but she was only in it like a bit, but like people who basically
the episode she was in, which was
Casino Night, must have been.
No, well, yeah, she was in a couple. Nancy.
Oh, she was the realtor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Diwali, which is when Michael tells her it's a costume party.
Yeah.
She comes dressed as a cheerleader.
It was weird to see even on...
she was funny on Saturday Night Live, too.
It was weird to see, like, The Office influence even on Twin Peaks. Like, it's very vague, but, like, I kind of got, like, I don't know, like, the portrayal of mundanity. Is that, like, the right word? Like, there were just, I don't know, I can't explain. There was something like the humorous tone, even if nothing's being said, the vibe of it.
David Lynch's comedy is, like, 50s sort of comedy of, like cowboy jokes. I'm trying to think, like, I have this short film collection that is a comedy where a French person, like a French stereotype, meets a cowboy stereotype, and you can tell it's like the funniest thing in the world to David Lynch.
Yeah,
where they like inevitably or ultimately like connect over coffee. I think, but one's like, "Oh, I got a baguette," and the other's like, "Oh, what about?" They both like cigarettes or some shit too.
Yeah,
but there was like you could tell he's like a Boy Scout, like like a knee slapper. But then he was like, okay, so then you find the suitcase that has a severed head in it.
Like, all of these, to bring it back to, like, does David Lynch like Stephen King in any way? Like, I don't think he
would. Because it's, like, consumable violence, usually to children, without, like, he's just cruel. Whereas, like, David Lynch wouldn't be violent. Like, he doesn't endorse the violence.
Yeah.
He doesn't, like, revel in it. It's, like, brutal and bad and has immediate consequences and pain.
Yeah.
Versus, like, a group of kids, like, taking turns in the Losers Club, like, with that girl.
Yeah.
That would never happen in a David Lynch thing. It would be... Like, I mean...
Fully consenting.
It would be Isabel Rossellini and all the men would be scarred after, if it...
Well, it's kind of funny because, like, at the time for Blue Velvet, they had those exact controversies about it, of, like, that it was too far for... And I know, like, Roger
America just
Ebert
couldn't
in particular.
handle Isabella Rossellini, too. Yeah. Like, she was too much for America.
I have the desire to, if I become a filmmaker in short time, be intentionally provocative of, like, what's the thing that I couldn't do, and then do it. You know, like
Well, it's not just like your former professors just wanted to say the N word because they
well,
shouldn't.
I mean, I didn't have this former professor. I'd like to point out.
Yeah.
I don't know who they are, but
But I'm with you. But I also I had a funny experience because I think on the previous one of these, I had mentioned that it would be funny to have a free concert with like Neil Young and say Neil Young and friends, and then you like, show up and there's just Neil Young standing on stage with his like
yeah,
his friends are in a death metal band, and then
Yeah.
everyone was like, "You can't complain, it was free."
Yeah.
Look, who are you to say who Neil Young's friends are? And
Yeah.
he's there.
yeah,
But then
it's
two
very
nights
Nathan
ago,
Fielder.
2 nights ago, I was enjoying the Run the Jewels performance from Adult Swim, and then I was cutting it up through sections of like Last Week Tonight. Like I'd watch a segment and then watch like 2 songs.
Yeah,
And then I was like, "Oh, I could do this with Saturday Night Live because it's like perfectly segmented." And
yeah,
so after the Run the Jewels one, I found a Phoebe Bridgers one where she's playing at the Troubadour, and every other song she brings a friend on where it's their song and she's like playing backup. I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" And like, mind you, every other song is a Phoebe Bridgers like performance, and she's amazing. And it's at the Troubadour where like amazing shows have happened. It's for free, and it's only any other song, and it's like a genre of music I like, you know. But I was like, I don't give a shit about this fucking guy.
Yeah.
I was gonna just sing Hall of Punisher, you know. I want to hear your album. So it's funny, like, because in my head I was like, oh, Neil Young with friends, like it would be so fun to be provoked. And then to experience it on the other end, not that that was like an intentional provocation on Phoebe Bridgers' part. She's just like a caring, generous artist who like keeps her friends around her. But I felt like, it was wrong of me to complain about it. But I was just like, I was pretty excited to see that album's one of my favorites of the year. But you know what I mean? Like, so it just made me think about provocation without reason, or provocation without a message or some substance, that everyone will just be angry and not in the way you want. So that's why
it's undirected, and that's why you'd think that Lynch dislikes King for that reason. For like, it's essentially
it's more like
tapping
Von
into...
Trier of like, if you find his jokes funny, then you'll find his provocations like part of that, where it's like hilarious to shoot children with red hats.
Yeah.
But if you're not in it, if you're not
in on it,
or you don't want to be, it's so painful.
But I'd think that like Lynch, I mean, it's unfair to say that or not accurate to say that he likes King, but like there's
I don't have the answer to
that. There's some shared blood there, I think, like in terms of like either inspirations, like there are anybody who's approximately the same age would, they get to pick up the same references. They live very similar lives, particularly if they're Western raised, or like from one culture. Like I think of that John Mulaney joke of like, why doesn't my dad have friends? And then like how everybody shared the same thing. It's like boomer males don't have very many friends. They have their wife's friends' husbands and stuff like that, and everybody like universally, it's like how they were raised and stuff like that. So I think of like them, they have similarities and they can talk and they can share inspirations, but I can see, as virtually everybody I know does, having a problem with how Stephen King executes his concepts.
Stephen King is a fan of David Lynch. He was very excited for Twin Peaks. But like he said that he, over everyone, Frank Darabont, he's someone who understands ordinary people, and that's what I write about, ordinary people under stress. A lot of times filmmakers don't really seem to understand ordinary people. And I think that's the reason why David Lynch has never made a Stephen King film, or John Waters, because they don't really get ordinary people.
I'd love to see David Lynch adapt a King work, though. Like there's pretty much a lot of
or John Waters.
Yeah. I love how John Waters is like permanently like kicking around.
Oh my goodness, yeah, he's important. But like,
Did you see his closet pics of the Criterion collection?
Yes.
Yeah, I like how he's like the only person who thought that like Roger Ebert's movie was good. He's like, he should have done that instead of doing whatever he did.
Zap. Yeah. It was funny reading about the Manson family, and like shortly after they were locked up in the early 70s, the B team was still active. You know, they had a lot of followers, and they gained a lot of followers after Sharon Tate stuff.
Oh man, imagine them during social media.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been brutal. So the B team have an idea of how they're going to get Charlie out of prison. And so they work with the Aryan Brotherhood to rob a gun store.
Man, is there ever a plot in real life or in fiction where somebody who like joins partners with a Nazi group and it ends like not terribly? It's like, oh wow, what a success! We should work with them more often. It's like, no,
stupid, idealistic, hateful people. Yeah, not even people. They're just scum. Nazi lives don't matter.
Sure.
So one of the guys had ties with the Aryan Brotherhood, so he's like, oh, I know where we can like, we just have to get like, they wanted something like 200 guns. So they were gonna, in best place, even in Grand Theft Auto, best place to start trouble, is the gun store, right? No one's armed there. So it leads to a big shootout. Citizens even join in, helping the cops, giving them ammo, bringing them ammo. All of the Manson family people are like arrested, and they all want to defend themselves in court, and the judge says no, but they're all going to be tried like together. So their lawyers thinks like they know the best way around this is to have Charlie Manson come to the stand and say they're all insane, I told them to do this, right?
Yeah.
So instead he gets up and they're like, all right, Charlie, come bail us out. And he's like, no, they knew exactly what they were doing, lock him up. And all of this, we wouldn't know about any of this for the most part, if not for John Waters, who went every day to their trial and the trials of the Manson family, and wrote about it in his book Role Models. But right after that experience of like sitting and listening to them speak in like secret language amongst themselves in court, he went home and wrote Pink Flamingos immediately.
I love those inspirations.
Yeah, and John Waters is very important. And it was just something that I learned through the last podcast this week. And
does it surprise you?
I was thinking about that a lot because it would have been fun to have that as the ending of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But
does it surprise you? And why do you think like he didn't take
like
that
a gun? Because it wasn't.
Because that's just how Tarantino does things.
He wanted to have a movie about Sharon Tate, not about the Manson family. So.
Yeah. Do you think that Sharon Tate,
it's similar
in that way, though?
It's actually pretty similar to Twin Peaks. If Sharon Tate didn't die, then the golden age of Hollywood lives on, and like Summer of Love continues henceforth. That's the fantasy, right? Like it is like Twin Peaks. It's just trying to undo a major like benchmark. Unring a bell,
Yeah. Does it? Yeah. I mean, what do you think that David Lynch is going to do next?
I don't know, something with Netflix.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
That makes sense.
Twin Peaks and
do you think
The Irishman and
Killers of the Flower Moon is coming out?
No, but I'm just thinking like thematic comparisons. The Irishman
is
and
a coda.
Twin Peaks and like that long drive home, Well,
I think of them both as like essentially, even though they're filmmakers will continue making stuff, they're essentially like a thematic coda to the main
it's
through
not
line
a given,
of work
but like that idea like the end of it wasn't quite the way that I had thought. I recently watched Kill Bill 2. It's more like the end of
Kill Bill as well.
Yeah. In addition to Kill Bill 2, where, you know, she gets BB, and then shout out to Death Stranding, and then drives home. I actually, but and then that I feel like that and Boogie Nights ending, like with Mark Wahlberg on the couch. Right before Tom Jane was, what's in the motherfucking safe in the motherfucking floor? Gonna come here too. Oh, that's Cosmo.
Yeah.
He's Chinese.
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite lines from Dr. Octopus. But
why?
That long way home, just like the last episode of Twin Peaks, that feeling, or I'm thinking of ending things.
Yeah.
The ending of that when they get to the
long journey into night.
The high school in that is similar in my head to Twin Peaks, the end of Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And it was funny watching like Charlie Kaufman reluctantly do press for that film when someone asked him like, what's the movie you've seen the most, and he was like, couldn't say for sure, but something David Lynch. And I was like, yeah, it was there. As well as like recently looking at like Infinite Jest. Yeah. Pick that up every now and then.
Once again, like,
but like these long journeys home.
But it's like once again these filmmakers of like they're not like you and me. They don't like watch a lot of films, so they don't have.
That's not necessarily true. I think like Scorsese and Charlie Kaufman and these guys like Von Trier watch like a movie every day.
Kaufman reminds me of somebody who actually doesn't have time to. In his mind,
he talks about in the interview all the stuff that he loves watching, and he was saying if he could write for any TV show, he said Pen 15. I don't even know what that is, but it was like David.
You don't know what that is?
I just like penis, but like I actually hadn't heard of it and forgot to look into it.
It's on AMC.
Is it good?
No, I'm joking. It's not on AMC, but it's like Pen 15. Can you tell when they asked me in elementary school, your friend would ask you, "Can you write Pen 15 land?"
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But it like I didn't know about it, but he clearly has time. Like I mean,
what strikes me is that I find an equal similarity to these outsiders to like I find them all the same as somebody would say insiders.
But do you know what I mean about what I'm trying to get across is that feeling that like I'm thinking of ending things, Twin Peaks, The Irishman, these long drives home, inside Llewyn Davis, or just to arrive at some place like surreal, like someplace like that's dreamlike, and Mulholland Drive is.
I think of True Detective first season.
It's like that reverse almost, but do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
The end of Nathan for You.
Yeah, where they
Finding
go.
Francis.
Yeah.
Like, what is that feeling? It also like it comes back to the Odyssey. That's all the Odyssey is. You tell them the same story until you get home.
A lot of people have. I mean, whether dragged by their parents or elsewhere, like everybody has had that kind of long journey.
Have you seen the original Solaris?
No.
With the long car ride sequence, it's like 7 to 10 minutes of just driving.
Yeah.
I need to finally see Until the World Ends, the Wim Wenders.
But I think it's just a length in time and like a long ability to do nothing or not have anything be pressed on essentially, and then just have something naturally unfold. It
is like a progression, it is in the hero story, like come home,
but there's
having
no
changed
pressure on it to happen.
But what I'm just trying to get at this sense of you like just
recapture that sense,
of like driving all night. Like just a long drive to end up someplace unreal. Like Carrie Page's house and all the way to Twin Peaks, or the story that Jack is telling in the house that Jack built.
Yeah.
Or I'm thinking of ending things. This is a literal car ride. Like, it's not like The Irishman, I think, is a great encapsulation of this American aging of, like, you have your stories and, like, they were cool, but at the end, like, you're just, the door's gonna close on you one day. Like, you're just Robert De Niro sitting in the old age home. Yeah, that's a fantastic movie. I almost bought that. I wanted to get that in Parasite.
I wish the majority of it was the third act. Like, because
oh man, Action Bronson has had like back-to-back years of like showing up unexpectedly just to make me laugh in films, with him as the casket salesman, and then in King of Staten Island when he's shot. And have you seen that film?
No, I have not. Yeah.
Action Bronson is shot and he's asked Pete Davidson for help. Yeah. And he was like, I'm not really a firefighter, I'm just hanging out here. He was like, oh man, that's cool. Let me just hang out here for a bit. And bleeding from his side.
It's weird, over your shoulder, I'm just looking at Naked Lunch. Do you have any recollection of about 2 months ago when it was like 2 or 3 a.m. or even 4,
definitely
4 a.m. and you were about to watch it and it's like this trippy movie and then you, for whatever reason, wasn't even finished. It was too tiring.
I was just tired. Yeah, it was like 2:30 and then I was like, I bet like I'll watch this movie and it'll be 4 and then I'll go to bed. And then it was like half an hour in and yeah, it did what I wanted it to. It's not like Cronenberg would put me to sleep, but it was just something that I can like kind of drift pressure. Away and like it being so surreal is just fun. I don't know.
My coworker.
Plus, I was outside my medication windows and like
going to see Possessor, by the way, on
I don't know.
Friday.
I really like you should watch Possessed or Possession. Rather.
Possessor is
Brandon
Cronenberg's.
Yeah, Toronto filmmakers, that's always good.
If you ever, I don't know, do you find that there's anything wrong with the way that we develop culture because we don't have like our own Hollywood or anything? Like we just
in Canada?
don't.
Well, yeah, it's just like a matter of like we should just be going out and doing more.
Yeah.
Rather than, that's why I really like the Larry Cohen documentary where he just says about going out, not getting permission, and just filming. Like just stealing shots, like Werner Herzog as well, and but like when God told me to, when they dress up Andy Kaufman, and then in the film he's a cop in a parade. In actuality, they just put Andy Kaufman in an ongoing parade and filmed it, and everyone presumed they had permission. They never asked. Yeah. But like he went out and he just did it.
Is that more dangerous now though, or people
definitely
more conscious of the danger? Like I think of the French Connection.
It was always dangerous.
They could have hit and killed somebody. They didn't, but there are a lot of near misses. With that.
Like we don't know about the animals that all the animals Sam Peckinpah killed. Yeah. Or how Alfred Hitchcock was like a real fucking asshole in real life to women.
Yeah, I remember I read recently about on Reddit, it's like the Wachowskis made the mistake of watching Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, so figured, I was telling you about that. Yeah.
It's like, why would you take your cues from the person who's like a good director who's bad with actors? It's like wrong inspirations. And, my favorite example, though, of the... well, it's probably not my favorite example, but it's one that I like. Of like the person who directed, I always get them confused. I think it's 10 Things I Hate About You rather than She's All That. They're like indistinguishable mirror movies, but the end where the band's playing their song on like top of the school or something. The director didn't get the permit for it, and they're like, "Oh, it's my first movie. Like, I really need this to like complete the shot, and we're done anyway." So they're like, "Did we get the permits?" And then they just lied, and they're like, "Yep, let's shoot it." They said yes, and there was like no consequences to it. But it's like, imagine if they did that, and then something awful happened. And then, I mean, you can't live.
Good thing it wasn't a John Landis film.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It was like more children would have died.
Well, it's kind of funny because I think about times when it's like I'm unhinged or something, or like thinking about unhinged. Russell Crowe, Road Rage.
I hope he throws a phone at someone.
Yeah.
Vintage Russell Crowe.
Him or Naomi Campbell or Blake Jenner. I'll throw
Fighting around the globe.
a lot of phone throwing.
To be,
I guess because it's in your hand so many of the time.
Well, in Russell Crowe's case, he like picked up a concierge phone at a hotel and threw it at someone in the lobby.
Which is weird because I always thought, like, so was that like a corded phone?
I think it was like
They were like
regular
within.
landline phone.
It's weird because I always imagined it like, him in a bellhop uniform that he throws it at, and it's like a corded.
I actually don't know, but I knew it was like substantial, not just a cell phone.
Yeah. Like it was a big phone.
Yeah, it was like
the kind of phone a gladiator would throw.
Now I've been meaning to ask. So, like, the name of this is supposed to be "Tale of Two Brothers" podcast.
Yes, yeah.
Like
Podcast of Tale of Two Brothers, I think is what. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the tale of two cities. Like, who's France? Who's Paris? Who's
I think
London?
It's like a thematic thing that we can like
It's just
weave in
like
as we go.
But do you know that book?
No, but it's from Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, the video game.
Oh, I thought it was A Tale of Two, like that, but comes from Charles Dickens.
Yeah,
A Tale of Two
19,
Cities.
Yeah.
And I was like, man.
Well, maybe next episode we can talk about its inspirations, and we'll start with The Dark Knight Rises. A movie which I do not like, and I'd love to tackle of how this resurgence of I'm getting older and cynical, I guess, but like I'm starting to see it's like, hey, you know what movie deserves a second look? This bad movie.
Oh.
And it's like...
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't mind them trying to remake bad movies, but like, I don't need any more adaptations of like,
well, it's...
like Peter Pan or...
Well, yeah, this is just me being obnoxious, but it's like, hey, this movie... Like, and there's nothing wrong with it, but people frequently on blogs or websites going, hey, this movie deserves a second look. And it's like...
Sizzling tales.
Well, it's like I realize more and more about... like, I've gotten more fair in my viewing of, like, this... Which Hemsworth brother is the best? None of them are particularly great, but there's an attitude of like, ooh,
Gunther.
maybe Luke Hemsworth, who's like on Westworld, is secretly the
Which
best.
one is
of them.
Thor?
The best one, the one who's actually
what's his first name?
Chris Hemsworth.
Okay.
And like he's the best one, and indication by
and
his
then
success,
one of them is in Cabin
Liam.
in the Woods.
Yeah,
right?
That's also Chris Hemsworth
Oh.
actually. And the bottom line is this: is that like the best Chris Hemsworth brother is the most famous.
The best Chris Hemsworth brother.
The best of Chris Hemsworth's brothers, himself included,
My
is
name
him.
is Liam Chris Hemsworth.
And he's the most famous because he is the most talented, and that's
Disney.
fame does work fairly sometimes. Like the truth is that like
I don't know about that one.
Like John Belushi is more famous than Jim Belushi in terms of like influence.
Depends on who you are.
But I mean, like, sure.
Not according to Jim.
You could make an argument that because Jim Belushi did it according to Jim and
People
has had
are
a
under
longer
a lot of
career.
stress, Rodney.
Yeah. And I find him funny. Like, he gets referenced in more things just via
Should
time.
have stacked my eyebrows like him.
Yeah, like, I doubt there are any... I'm sure there's inspirational stuff, but there's no direct references to John Belushi in
A lot of
Community
people,
that I know of.
like David Cross, has like a whole bit about how Jim Belushi is like, oh, he can't be that bad. And then he worked with them, and he was like, he was way worse. That he was just mean to like everybody, like makeup and hair, and like that they were crying, and it was his first movie. And
But that was another thing of like Sean Young, for example, being like
I
misunderstood.
don't even know who that is.
Sean Young was the female lead on Blade Runner, Rachel, and it's basically like
Rachel.
and it's like the constant battling of like, oh,
The
was
first one?
yes, and it's like the constant battle of like, was she terrible?
Like
Or
Zooey
was everything else
Deschanel's
just
haircut?
sexist? And it's like, which one overrides the other more? And it turns out that, like, the person who, they work for The Guardian and they go and interview her. And from the outset, she paints the author of the article as, like, he's going to do a hit job. It's like, you're going to make me look bad like everyone else. And then they're like, no, I want you to know, like, please tell your side of it because they want to uncover the misogyny of Blade Runner. And she just, like, won't accept that narrative, and then she actively antagonizes the writer, and the writer gives like a reasonable response, and like basically it's like their takeaway is that she's like as enigmatic as the rest of the film, like basically the most positive way you could do it. But it's like, yeah, how people go back on things and they want to insist that something happened in a way because it was unfair, when in reality it's that Robert McKee thing of like
what I was complaining about with the vow for them to at the end, just Keith Raniere wants to have his say. Oh, you have one side of the documentary, and
he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, there's HBO gonna give him like another platform for his bullshit.
Because it's like obsessed with his success. That can only
versus like Love Fraud, which I was saying did it really well.
Yeah,
where they were like, 20 minutes into the last episode, like we have him, like he's caught, and then they reserve the rest of it for him, like fake crying and telling his side of the story. And I was like, check out this loser, which was like the thesis of the show, versus The Vow, which is like a bunch of people who are such big marks. They used to be big marks for Keith, and now they're huge marks for themselves.
Do you think?
And then they became marks for themselves on the show.
Yeah.
Just talking from wrestling terms, they're like their own biggest fans of like, they're all just assholes.
Well, I mean, nothing can ever last. Like, do you think Twin Peaks in any other scenario could have been longer?
No, I don't think it was necessary for it, and that's why like, people are saying like the fourth season. Like, I don't think it's necessary. Like to have there's nothing left. The whole season 3 made that very clear.
Yeah.
It even imagine having a puzzle, and you're like slave of the puzzle. And then by the end of it, you find that the puzzle's not only completed itself, but put itself away back on the shelf.
Yeah.
Would you do that puzzle again? Like, probably...
No.
Probably not. Like, if it was just like, oh, okay.
I've never seen, in real life or in fiction, somebody put together the same puzzle twice.
Right. I don't know if it's a thing you do.
I don't think it is.
Maybe that's what the movie That
I
Thing
mean, why
You
do
Do
people
was about.
store puzzles anyway?
Hoarding.
But, like, if Twin Peaks had been, like, not canceled in its second season or something, and it, like, I think that if that... It's impossible to say, but if that had come out...
from there.
If it had first come out... It's difficult because it would have annulled itself, but if it had first come out and being as fresh and groundbreaking as it was, at the same time that Twin Peaks The Return did, it basically would have been a show that would have probably gone on too long, repeated itself, and then cycled in. Like, even as good as David Lynch is or was, it's
like
basically...
Firefly. If there was like, well, the first season's really
sucked.
good, but the fourth season...
Yeah, it would have sucked.
Yeah.
Like,
I wish Nathan Fillion would go do something else, like a crime procedural or something.
Same thing with Arrested Development. Like, they basically had... Like, there is an understanding that a lot of creators don't want to admit that, like, they have a certain amount of time, a finite amount of time to tell a story. And you can tell, and I remember you regarding this, around the third season of Arrested Development, they start to get self-referential. I think that they would have, because it's like, what are the most vital things about the show?
They were depending on the self-referential. It was trying to figure out it had it right all along. And then things changed, and they couldn't do the same kind of show production, so they similarly brought back for season 3 well after. And it was like someone new in like season 4 or whatever.
I never even watched.
But it was like
5.
it was like having a different voice.
Yeah.
Of like the, of the same cartoon, but the voice cast has changed. It's just like Twin Peaks is like someone else is wearing the show we know as a mask, and that was Arrested Development when it came back, because all the stars were too big and they couldn't get them all to film at the same time. Plus, Jeffrey Tambor probably wouldn't stop screaming at people.
Yeah,
Well,
it's so weird to me.
Well, Portia de Rossi's probably used to that at home.
Yeah,
with Ellen.
Oh no,
But poor Jessica
Ellen is a
Walters.
fascinating thing. Well, what fascinates me
poor-
about Jessica Walter is that she had a long relationship of working with Jeffrey Tambor. And then
It
what does that
was-
mean when Jeffrey Tambor is screaming at you and she says, "I've never been talked to that way in my life"? I think the most
Maybe
illuminating
he's probably
thing,
like going off a cliff.
the most illuminating
And Kingsley.
thing about season 5 of Arrested Development is that New York Times interview where
Mm.
they showed misogyny on full display. Even if
Yeah.
it's people that you like, even if it's like Jason
Yeah.
Bateman and everybody there,
Yeah.
the guys will still behave in that sort of way towards
Maybe
the
tried
defense
to
of women.
help.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
Oh,
like
sweetie.
just not knowing their place in
we're
it.
just not like accepting them for saying I didn't like this, and we're like, well, maybe you just didn't understand it.
Yeah.
You know, but it shouldn't.
We got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I do you think that anybody could ever, and I think that like money will eventually come back because Twin Peaks is like a really strong brand identity. Do you think
I
that
think David Lynch is a stronger brand.
Yeah, so I wonder, like, and this is like getting into the commerce part of it, but do you think that like somebody, will, like, if they came up with an idea to resurrect it and basically went to
It
David
couldn't
Lynch,
happen without him,
yeah, that David Lynch like do you think he would give the okay ever?
No.
Yeah,
because it's. I mean, he did. If you want to see what that's like,
Mm-hmm.
just watch the latter part of season 2 because
Yeah.
he didn't have anything to do with it.
Oh,
So
right,
then
yeah.
it was like people who had access to his ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but not how to use them. That's why like Josie Packard was turned into a knob on a dresser.
Mm-hmm.
One of the characters in season 2 is trapped within a knob on a dresser.
What's your take on season 2? Is it the worst?
It's not very
element?
good
Yeah.
because like David Lynch wasn't there, and like fucking what's his name, James Hurley, having like Black Widow subplot with characters of no consequence. Sometimes I just want to get on my motorcycle and go. Oh, just go,
yeah.
James. Just leave.
What do you think of like? Do you have a favorite part of season 2 that you can like, even though
Yeah,
it's,
Wyndham Earl. His whole thing.
I think a lot about like.
I like Leo
caretaking.
being in a wheelchair and silent, and Heather Graham is always nice to look at, but
Do you
she was shoehorned in.
Yeah. Do you think?
How is Annie?
Yeah.
How is Annie? How is Annie?
Do you think that anybody could
Dead.
essentially anyone else but David Lynch could tell a David Lynch story, like do one of
Well,
his
we're gonna
scripts?
see with Denis Villeneuve and Dune, I suppose. But
Yeah, but it's like the problem with that is that I would imagine that I don't know. Like
Yes,
again, you have
no.
Frank Herbert
the
as a
easy answer
creative
is
voice.
no.
Yeah.
So, I
But
don't
it's
think
like
so.
Dino De Laurentiis, I guess, was doing it at the time. So it's like,
It's tough to do it even with people who's like, where you have good intentions.
Yeah.
Like when Michelle McNamara died and
Yeah.
her editors and friends tried to finish writing her book, or
did that work out?
no,
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah.
I mean, not in the same way, but they didn't earnestly try to write in her voice,
Yeah.
or all the attempts to make Napoleon the Kubrick script
Yeah.
long after he died, and or
Which
or
I
trying
think
to
now
figure
Ridley
out,
Scott
like,
and Joaquin
Orson
are even
Welles'
trying to do.
intentions with his stuff that got fucked around with, like
Other Side of the Wind, right?
or like a better cut of Magnificent Ambersons, but it can't even exist because they didn't film it. But
Is there any situation you can think of where it's like somebody, like, is it better in a way to recognize that you're not that person and try and do something in your
Well-
own way, or is it better to sincerely try to
like
take on?
P.T. Anderson was the first AD on Prairie Home.
Home Companion?
Yeah, but if Robert Altman died.
Didn't Matthew Vaughn end up taking? Oh,
I
or
actually
no?
don't know. I just know that P.T. Anderson was there in case.
Yeah, but
and-
Altman actually lived through it, so
Yeah.
Darn, they were really. He was
That's what,
rubbing his hands. Come on,
Garrison Keillor didn't. That
Yeah.
fuck. He was one of the Me Too
Yeah,
guys. He looks like Brendan Gleeson on a bad day.
yeah, or Steve Bannon.
Yeah, ugh.
Yeah,
But
I think of. Yeah,
you really have to
yeah. I was just thinking of you saw Veep all the way through.
Yeah.
Of like that's like they aren't Armando Iannucci, David Mandel, but he's like reasonably talented. So it's like we're gonna make it shorter and basically go for pathos rather than jokes, and it ends up like not being as good. But it's like at least
You're as
provides an
useful as a
appropriate tone.
marzipan dildo. It just makes a mess of everything.
Yeah. So questions without answers, typical.
Yeah, I mean,
Different.
it's just artistic intent versus artistic
Execution.
execution.
What do you think?
When the
Are they
artist
equally
isn't even
important?
there? Like, yeah, I mean, the then we get into like death of the author sort of stuff, which I always enjoyed. Once it's complete, the author is dead, but until it is complete, the author is the important part.
Can there be more than one?
Yeah, but then you start thinking about the artistic principles of the like Walter Benjamin and like French ones about their intent and aura of the original and like an ineffable quality of it being a David Lynch movie made by David Lynch rather than people doing a cover version of David Lynch.
Yeah. Diet David Lynch.
It's like the Mona Lisa. The real Mona Lisa isn't on display.
Yeah.
They have like replicas that are slightly bigger. People impose the aura upon it, even though it is one that's been replicated and it is an image that has been duplicated, forever. But, yeah. So
as long as the idea, I guess, exists or was out there and can be uncovered in
just
some
in
way.
case you're like asking these questions to see if like maybe I can get Sam on this instead of Nick, and no one will know the difference.
It's impossible to like. People would really notice, and I don't think Sam would be as good of a podcast guest.
Sam would be a good podcast if I wanted to know what all his friends thought of everything.
Yeah, the passivity.
Oh,
of it.
Justin liked that one. What did you think of it? I don't know, but Justin liked it.
Yeah.
That's fuck you, Sam.
Like, there's not enough of that. There's just too often things like,
I'm saying,
what do you think, or what do you think? I think it's
well,
like
that's what I was trying to. I just wasn't asking you the right ways.
Well, I mean, here's the basic thing, is that I'm uncomfortable to admit it, but there's far too much more than usual on Twin Peaks that I did not understand, and I made up my idea going into it that I was just going to sit back and enjoy the ride, and that basically allowed me
there
to
was a missing piece.
enjoy it as much as possible and find more in uncovering it in like future iterations as a mystery that will never be solved.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yet if it is ever fully solved, which it can be,
Yes,
it
won't
loses its mystique. It goes away.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter.
Which is what the show is about.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to end. And we'll
That's
take
what
that
the
as
show is
given.
about. If you knew everything there was, there wouldn't be a show.
Yeah.
That's what the show is about. That's Judy.
And that's what our show is about.
Yeah. Trying to explain away everything fun about art you might watch yourself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah.
We'll see you in another 2 months or whatever. Yeah. It's actually only might be a month since our last one.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
We've been meaning to do it for a while.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
right.
for having me.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll end it right there.